The elderly man stood quietly outside the restaurant he had built with his own hands, wearing a simple jacket that had seen better days. His hair had turned silver, his shoes were worn, and no one recognized the man whose dream had once filled the building with life. Before he could even step inside, the hostess looked at him, judged him in a single glance, and refused to give him a table. The employees laughed politely, believing he was just another old man who didn't belong in such an elegant place. What they didn't know was that every brick, every light, every corner of that restaurant carried a piece of his life. They had just turned away the owner himself, and what happened next would change every person in that room forever. Before we continue, if you believe kindness matters more than appearances and that everyone deserves respect no matter how they look, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe to The Kind Soul. Your support helps us bring more stories that remind the world to choose compassion over judgment. More than 40 years earlier, the restaurant had been nothing more than an empty building with cracked walls and broken windows. The man, whose name was Samuel Carter, had worked endless double shifts washing dishes, delivering groceries, and sleeping only a few hours each night to save enough money to buy the property. Every dollar represented sacrifice. He skipped meals, walked instead of taking buses, and never allowed himself to give up. His wife stood beside him through every hardship, believing in his dream even when others laughed at it. Together they painted the walls, repaired the furniture, and welcomed their first customers with homemade recipes passed down through generations. The restaurant slowly became more than a business. It became a second home for lonely people, a place where birthdays were celebrated, marriages were proposed, and strangers became lifelong friends. Samuel believed one simple rule mattered more than profits. Every customer deserved to be treated with dignity. It didn't matter whether someone wore an expensive suit or old clothes. If they entered his restaurant hungry or tired, they would leave feeling respected. His employees admired him because he never asked anyone to do work he wouldn't do himself. Even after becoming successful, he still swept the floors, washed dishes during busy evenings, and remembered the names of regular guests. His kindness became the true recipe behind the restaurant's success. Years passed, and the restaurant grew into one of the city's finest dining destinations. Awards filled the walls, celebrities visited, and business flourished. Eventually, Samuel retired, leaving the daily operations to professional managers while he quietly stepped away for public attention. He rarely visited because he wanted the younger generation to create their own future. Without realizing it, many new employees had never even seen a photograph of the founder. Life, however, has a way of testing even the strongest hearts. Samuel's beloved wife passed away after a long illness, leaving him with memories instead of companionship. His children lived in distant cities, busy with careers and families of their own. He found comfort in simple walks through the neighborhood where he had once dreamed impossible dreams. One rainy afternoon, he decided to visit the restaurant for the first time in several years. He didn't want special treatment. He simply wanted to sit in the corner where he and his wife had shared countless quiet dinners after closing time. The restaurant had changed. The decorations were more luxurious, the menu more expensive, and the atmosphere more exclusive. As Samuel entered, the young hostess looked at his faded clothes and assumed he couldn't afford the place. Without asking his name or listening to his polite explanation, she informed him that all tables were unavailable. Moments later, a wealthy-looking couple arrived without a reservation and were immediately welcomed inside. Samuel understood exactly why. He stood silently on the sidewalk, not angry but deeply saddened. The building he had created to welcome everyone had become a place where appearances mattered more than character. Before leaving, he looked through the window and noticed employees smiling at wealthy guests while ignoring an elderly homeless man sitting across the street in the rain. Samuel's heart broke, not because he had been rejected, but because the values he had spent a lifetime building seemed to have disappeared. The next morning, Samuel returned, this time accompanied by the company's board members. The restaurant manager confidently greeted the executives, unaware that the quiet old man standing beside them was the founder whose portrait hung in the corporate headquarters. Within minutes, every employee gathered in shocked silence as Samuel was formally introduced. Faces turned pale. The hostess who had refused him could barely lift her eyes. The manager realized that the man they had judged by his appearance was the very reason they all had jobs. No one expected what Samuel would do next. There were no angry speeches, no public humiliation, and no immediate dismissals. Instead, he walked slowly through the dining room, touching the tables where thousands of families had celebrated life's happiest moments. He spoke gently about the restaurant's true purpose. He reminded everyone that luxury meant nothing if kindness was missing. Success without compassion was failure wearing expensive clothes. A restaurant could serve the finest meals in the city, but if it made even one person feel worthless, it had forgotten why it existed. Samuel then asked the staff to step outside with him. Across the street, the elderly homeless man was still sitting alone. Samuel invited him inside personally, offered him the best table in the restaurant, and shared a meal with him. Customers watched in respectful silence as tears filled the eyes of employees who finally understood the lesson no training manual could teach. That single act transformed the atmosphere more than any renovation ever could. Over the following months, everything changed. Every new employee learned Samuel's story on their first day. Staff members were trained to greet every guest with equal respect regardless of clothing, age, or appearance. The restaurant launched programs providing free meals to people in need each week, and customers happily supported the mission. Reviews no longer praised only the food. They celebrated the warmth, humanity, and genuine care that could be felt the moment someone walked through the door. Samuel never sought headlines or public recognition. His greatest achievement was never the awards, the profits, or the beautiful building. It was proving that kindness could survive in a world often blinded by appearances. The employees who had once judged him carried that lesson into every interaction for the rest of their lives. Some even said the restaurant became more successful after embracing compassion than it ever had before. Before we reach the ending, we'd love to hear from you. Please leave a comment and tell us. Have you ever been judged because of your appearance? Or have you witnessed someone else being treated unfairly? Your story may inspire someone who needs hope today. As Samuel left the restaurant that evening, he looked back one final time. He saw the hostess warmly welcoming an elderly couple dressed in simple clothes, smiling with genuine respect. He knew the restaurant had finally come home. It wasn't the walls, the menu, or the decorations that made it special. It was the hearts of the people inside. If this story touched your heart and reminded you that kindness can change lives, please like this video, share it with your friends and family, leave a heartfelt comment, and subscribe to The Kind Soul. Every interaction helps us spread more stories that inspire compassion, forgiveness, and hope. Sometimes the richest person in the room is the one whose heart is filled with kindness. And sometimes the greatest legacy we leave behind isn't a successful business. It is the way we make others feel when they believe no one sees them.